We've learned all about pops, we've grown our economy, waged a little war, and explored the globe. Now it's time to discover another mechanical layer you can use to interact with the world. So, what do you need to know about diplomacy in EU5? It is said that the pen is mightier than the sword. And in EU5, that can sometimes be the case. Let us start off today in the Diplomacy tab. Now there's three things we're going to want to discuss first when interacting with diplomacy. Up here we have our diplomatic capacity. This is simply a measurement of how many diplomatic relations we can be engaged with at the same time. We currently have a diplomatic capacity of 4.5 and we're using around half of that. A lot of that's being taken up with aquitaine. The larger and more powerful a partner is, the more diplomatic capacity they will use. And at the bottom of the tab we can see where our max capacity is coming from. And we have a 50% modifier from diplomatic spending. That modifier is coming from our economy tab, specifically the diplomatic spending slider. If we drag this up, we are spending more money on diplomacy, but our modifiers have also gotten stronger. Now instead of a 50% modifier, we have a 100% modifier. If we travel back to our diplomatic tab, our diplomatic capacity has gone up. Next is our diplomatic reputation. This is a measurement of how highly regarded you are in the international community. You could use diplomatic reputation as a lever to get nations to be more likely to engage in a diplomatic action with you. And finally, we have our diplomats. Diplomats are a pool of resource that you gather over time. For most diplomatic actions, engaging in the action will cost one diplomat. And for some things like improving relations, it will require a small amount of maintenance that will reduce how much diplomats you gain per month. Here we can find buttons for managing and creating our subjects. Creating a subject is fairly easy. You just need to tell the game what physical location you would like to be your new subject and what type of subject they will be. One thing to note is that different subject types will have different rules associated with them. Managing subjects will show you a list of your current subjects and some information about them. Left to right, we have their opinion of us, their loyalty, their liberty desire, the amount of taxes they pay to us, their total tax base, and the size of their army. This button right here will allow you to change how their military behaves while at war. This button will allow you to change what type of vassal they are, cancel their status, or even annex them into your country. Clicking on their name will bring you to a list of interactions you can engage with while interacting with that subject. For example, we can steal their money, but that will increase their liberty desire. The bottom of this panel is populated by a categorized list of diplomatic relations that we currently have. This is our list of subjects, this is a list of casus belli we currently have active, and this is a list of our enemies. All diplomatic interactions will end up listed here and in an appropriate category. The list of known countries will show us all the countries that we're aware of and a quick access list of buttons that are common diplomatic tasks. The first button will allow us to improve relations. This will cost us one diplomat right now and a monthly maintenance cost in the increase in diplomats. The next button is Profess Trust. This is where we could use some of our diplomatic reputation to increase a country's trust with us. As an example, if we'd like to offer an alliance to Byzantium here, the level of trust we have with them will increase their likelihood of success. Next is Curry Favors. Favors build up slowly over time, and you can trade them in for diplomatic actions. For example, you could use some favors to ask another nation to break an alliance, or to place a relative of yours in line for their throne. Next is building up a spy network. You could use your spy network to engage in a number of covert actions. The final two buttons here will allow us to create a CB of different types, and a quick access button for declaring a war. The final tab is our list of international organizations, which we looked at in a previous tutorial. And finally, we have a tab for all diplomatic actions. This could be a good way of shopping for things like alliances. Here you can see the list defaults to countries that will accept an alliance with us right now. Let's talk a little bit more about alliances. One of the important things about alliances is that you can call your allies into your wars. This can be very important as you can easily find yourself in a situation where you might not be able to defeat a foe by yourself, but if you can get the correct alliances, the two of you together might be able to take them down. Even if a nation is showing you that they will not accept an alliance, there's some important information we can glean from that no. If we hover over the little X, it will show us how likely they are to accept and why. We need to get this number to a positive. An 18-point swing is not going to be super easy, but it is doable. We could do things like increasing their trust with us or try to get a royal marriage. That will increase the positives, making them more likely to accept an alliance. The thing about a royal marriage, though, is that each side will need to have a single character that is of legal marrying age. Here we have Lady Elizabeth Plantagenet, and if we click on her, we have a list of valid royal marriage candidates. Let's take a royal marriage with Brabant. To Duke Jan III. If we take a look at the Duchy of Brabant and try to offer them alliance, you can see that the royal marriage gave us a +20 modifier. That brings them into the positive. They will now accept an alliance. In this way, you could use opinion, trust, royal marriages, and some other factors to try to sway diplomacy to your benefit. Diplomacy is a game of resources. Improving opinions here, currying favors there, and sending off royal marriages when you have applicable family members. These are all things you could do to try to secure your larger, more complex goals. Back to our diplomacy tab, you can see that our alliance with Brabant is now costing us some of that diplomatic capacity. And all of those actions we just engaged with used up all of our diplomats. And now we are gaining diplomats slower because we are building a spy network and improving opinions. Now, let's envision a world where you have won and you've decided to take some land as the spoils of victory. After all, it's yours. You found it. It came to you. And well, if you've got enough war score, you can impose your will on your foes. They're not going to be able to stop you alone. And that brings us to antagonism. To better describe antagonism, let's skip ahead to a country that has recently expanded a little aggressively. We can gather the information we need through the antagonism map mode. As you can see, it's color-coded. The darker blue is us, the lighter blue is people we have no antagonism with, and the red is regions that we should worry about. Let's start the conversation by taking a look at a nation that's a little further away from us. We can see that we still have some antagonism here, and that is a natural point that is reached because of a couple different factors. Having different cultures, languages, religion, government types, or even societal values will have a tendency to change antagonism. The more different a nation is from yours, the more base antagonism you will have. You can see that the biggest pain point here is that we have different religions. If we take a look at a closer country, you can see we have a took locations modifier on there as well. This is what happens when you aggressively expand in a region. Other nations in that region will become upset with you for having taken land. Anything that is in red is over 50 antagonism, and that is your pressure point. Any country that has over 50 antagonism can join a coalition together against the nation that caused it. Now, just two smaller nations in a coalition against us might not be that big of a threat, but dozens of smaller nations in a coalition against us could be devastating. If a coalition gets big enough and they think they have enough fighting power, they will declare a war on you and attempt to cut you back down to size, returning land you have taken to its rightful owners. Another thing you might notice on here is we have a positive modifier for improved relations. High relations will help offset antagonism. Now, the positive modifiers for improved relations and the negative modifiers for taking territory both have a tendency to decay over time and balance out to zero. So if you are trying to keep a highly antagonized country at bay, you might need to keep improving relations for a long period of time. And conversely, if you cause hundreds of points of antagonism, it decays fairly slowly, around 2 points per year. So it could take you a very long time for that to decay away. Now, that doesn't just mean you can't just muscle your way through a coalition. It is entirely possible, but a powerful coalition could really be a setback on your plans for world domination. We start at a point in history where the banners of nobles are very slowly starting to be replaced by the banners of state. But there are mighty dynasties that survived the upheaval of society and moved from feudalism to global empire. One of the best ways to secure long-lasting relationships in EU5 is through marriage. Royal marriages can come with some great opinion and prestigious boons that can be deciding factors in securing an alliance. Marriages will also help to secure your dynastic succession, because those characters will produce heirs. In fact, making sure all your cadet houses, nobles in your realms, and even some of the lowborns that are moving up in society are wed is a very useful tool to make sure you have the largest pool of characters available for you to use. Those characters will lead your military forces, work in your cabinet, and go exploring the globe. Before, we covered how we could actually set up a royal marriage. It's fairly simple, but there's a few other options you have available to you as well. You could have someone marry a local noble, which will keep them in your court and producing heirs for you. We could have someone marry a lowborn, which will spawn in a character that they will marry, but it will cost us in legitimacy and prestige. This could be a great option if your dynasty is whittling down and you're having trouble finding some partners of noble station. You can also think of royal marriages tactically. If your dynasty is sitting on the throne of other nations, you'll have better opinions with those nations, and diplomacy will be that much easier. This could also lead you to a situation where the ruler of a nation dies and you are the heir to the throne. That would put you as the ruler of multiple nations, and that is how a personal union is formed. So getting your dynasty onto the throne of multiple nations is a way to try to expand your borders diplomatically. So you're making your way through the world, attempting to establish a trade empire on the Black Sea, exporting silver to the world. You have a few positive diplomatic relations, and you've set up a royal marriage with a neighbor to the east. Then, in a rapid series event, the Basilius dies and you find yourself head of a personal union. That is exactly what happened here. Playing as Trebizond, we have a royal marriage with our Orthodox neighbors to the east, and positive diplomatic relations with the Byzantine Empire. In a matter of moments, the Basilius is dead, we're leading a personal union, and some interesting diplomatic shenanigans have occurred. First, let's take a look at this one, our marriage union. Now, this is a fairly strong diplomatic bond, but not as powerful as a personal union. Members of a marriage union will defend each other in a war. Here you can see it's made up of Trebizond, Byzantium, and our neighbors to the east, Samskashi. Samskashi? Samskashi. Samskashi. Sam. I should have picked something that was easier to pronounce. Now, the reason this exists between the three nations is because I sit on the throne of both Trebizond and Byzantium, and I'm married to the ruler of Sam. Now, on the other side of the coin, we have the actual personal union between Trebizond and Byzantium. And the reason I am the leader of this personal union is because, on paper, I am stronger than the Byzantine Empire. It is based on your great power score. We have a great power score of 246. They have a great power score of 239. Now, this leads us into a delicate situation. Whoever is the most powerful member of the union gets to be in charge of the union. But my power is mostly on paper in this circumstance. We could easily find ourselves in a situation where Byzantium becomes more powerful than I am and takes control over the union. Now, they do have to become 125% stronger than me in great power score, so it's more than just a point or two. And then they have to use a country interaction from the diplomacy tab to actually take seniority over the personal union. So while it is something I want to keep an eye on, it is not something that is an immediate danger to me. You may also notice that my husband's nation is not a member of the personal union. That's because I do not sit on his throne. He has an heir that is not me. Now, if something were to happen to his heir and we were to produce a child who is heir to both nations, that would be a different story. This brings us to the dynamic power struggle between lesser and greater members of a personal union. The senior member of the personal union is going to be trying to centralize the union, bring everybody closer together. This will eventually lead to both countries unifying and becoming one. Now, the junior members are trying to decentralize the union and maintain their sovereignty. They're going to be attempting to push away from the centralization efforts and maintain power unto themselves, and may even take power over the union. This is called federalization. A union of federalized states will have more power within each state than a centralized union where everybody is going to be eventually absorbed into the mother state. This is done through laws in the union. Each union will have its own unique set of laws. Members of the union can propose policies and attempt to get them signed into law. As you can see, most of the laws here have no policies set because this is a brand new union. For example, though, we currently have the sovereign succession law. This helps increase legitimacy. But we could try to have it changed to a unified succession law, which will increase our integration level. And a junior member might try to push it towards sovereign succession law, which will allow them to attempt to maintain some of their own power. Now, my play going into the future here to diplomatically try to increase my power in the region would be to get an heir of mine onto my husband's throne and to start centralizing the union with the Byzantine empires to attempt to secure our position as the senior member before the Byzantine Empire has a chance to grow in power. And with that, we have reached the end of our little series of tutorials. We do hope that these have helped ease you into EU5. Thank you very much for watching all the way through to the end, and Little Lorris and I will see you next time.